The meeting will be called to order at 4:31 p.m., May 16th meeting. President Wardell Garaducci is excused. Commissioners present are Vice President Susan Mall, Commissioners Lee, Wong, Dunning, Wolf, and Ono is expected.
Is there general public comment?
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the Commission, Michael, Maureen, my name is Craig Palmer. I'm the Chief Advancement Officer for Friends of the San Francisco Public Library, and it's my pleasure to bring greetings from our Executive Director, Marie Sapella, who's having a little bit of a sick day today, but wanted the Commission to be apprised of a few notes, and I'm here to bring them to you. Friends is very excited about the best time of the year. It's Summer Stride, the largest program Friends funds. We won't spoil Christy Estrovich's presentation later, but we are always excited to see the 60-page program guide filled with more than 800 STEM activities, the incredible art, promotional materials, awards, and bags that Friends is so proud to fund and make available at every branch and our local national parks. Summer Stride truly represents what private partnership with our public library can produce for its community, to children of all ages, and to children of heart. Also, on May 24th in Corrett Auditorium at 10 a.m., the library will be hosting a really rather extraordinary collaborative event with Friends, the Academy of Sciences, and the Golden Gate National Park Conservancy. The topic is citizen science. It's a panel presentation led by Mary Ellen Hannibal with experts from the Academy and Golden Gate National Parks. And it concludes with a tour of the Stegner Center, which allows us to do what we've been wanting to do for a while, which is to reach back into some of those good folks who created Stegner Center in the first place and bring those donors back alive. So we're very grateful for that. Along the way, we might be sharing a few tips on how to include the Friends and Library in your estate planning, but we're going to have a good time talking about citizen science and all the ways all these organizations collaborate. So we're very grateful for the library hosting that. And finally, as Marie mentioned last time, we continue our citywide education efforts around the Library Preservation Fund. One of our most effective venues for outreach and conversation is our book donation and selling operations, and we want to tell you about our next major event. Our partnership with Anchor Steam Pub Taps in Potrero Hill continues to grow. On Sunday, June 23rd, we will hold a day-long pop-up book sale at Public Taps on the outdoor patio. It's an event for everyone, single folks, families, children, and puppies. So mark your calendar. We hope to see you there. And finally, I'm pleased to report that we've talked about our comprehensive community outreach program that we've begun, bringing the message of the Library Preservation Fund literacy, and that's ongoing now. So you'll see us at branch open houses, Sunday streets, and any place where we can find folks to hear our message about this wonderful partnership in our award-winning library. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Craig. Additional public comment?
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. First of all, I'd like to say that the fines that the library has talked about and we've talked about as well, have apparently been suspended, the collection of fines. I'm very disappointed that there has been no discussion, no decision-making on the part of the Commission. I am glad about the direction, which is not having money fines. We've talked about that for years and advocated for it, as well as no fees, which is still not, fees are still unchanged. I'm also sorry to find that there seems to be no publicity whatsoever for people who visit the library or even who stay home with fines owing. The only publicity that I saw was from on the website, on the homepage. So if you go onto the library's website, you'll see a note about that, which is fine, but the absence for those who don't have easy access or frequent access to computers, or for those who are sitting at home maybe scared to come in because they owe fines, those folks need to have equal opportunity to know about the suspension of fine collection. The April 24th New York Times talks about Facebook expecting to be fined up to $3 billion by the Federal Trade Commission over privacy issues. The key third paragraph says they've been in negotiations with the regulator for months over a financial penalty for claims that the company violated a 2011 privacy consent decree. That year, the social network promised a series of measures to protect its users' privacy after an investigation found that its handling of data had harmed consumers. So what do we find continually with the library? Hustling Facebook and its related organizations with advertisements at the library, the monthly newsletter. Get Social, and it shows the logos of Facebook and others. Again, Get Social, and it shows the logos again, and on the last page, the logos a third time. The library should not be hustling Facebook. Instead, it should be warning people about the many privacy threats, and you need to do a privacy audit or review overall at the library. It's been more than 10 years since you had one previously. The library computers on the main floor continue to be a mess. 6 out of 6 of the available computers didn't have a plug-in for earphones. Many of them don't have plug-ins for the necessary thumb drives that you need to save stuff. It's a mess downstairs on the first floor with respect to computers. Thank you.
Additional public comment? No? Okay. Our next agenda item is about the Maya Angelou Public Artwork Project.
Thank you, Vice President Mall, and good evening, Commissioners. On this agenda item, you may recall this past January, the Commission discussed the Board of Supervisors legislation to improve the depiction of women in the public realm, and more specifically, the project to create an artwork honoring Dr. Maya Angelou at the San Francisco Main Library. At the January meeting, the Library Commission took action to appoint Vice President Mall to the Artist Selection Committee. And this committee will be tasked with identifying the artist who will create the artwork. So this evening we have Jackie Von Trescow, Project Manager, Public Art, Civic Art Collection, and Public Art Program from the San Francisco Arts Commission. And we also have Naomi Jelks, our African American Center Program Manager, who has also served on the Artist Selection Committee. They're going to provide a presentation and an update on the Maya Angelou Artwork Project.
Good evening. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about the project overview. You can follow along in your packet. This project really started in a variety of ways, but we really wanted to address the fact that for public art, there are currently about 38 monuments honoring non-fictional men, but only 2 sculptures and 1 historical plaque honoring non-fictional women. The ordinance sets a new policy that at least 30% of historical figures depicted in statues and other artworks on city-owned property be women. That also includes public buildings, names, and street names. The first of these projects has been identified as an artwork honoring Dr. Maya Angelou in recognition of her many accomplishments, including breaking color and gender barriers, by becoming San Francisco's first African-American female streetcar conductor, an award-winning author and poet, a Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient, and a civil rights leader. The artwork will be located at the San Francisco Public Library, main branch, located at 100 Larkin in the Civic Center complex facing City Hall.
So I thought I would quickly read an excerpt from the ordinance outlining the mandates of this particular project. The highlighted section is what I'm going to read here. By no later than December 31st, 2020, the Arts Commission shall erect a work of art depicting Dr. Maya Angelou at the main library. The Arts Commission shall determine the design of the artwork and the specific location at the main library, provided that the artwork shall include a significant figurative representation of Maya Angelou. The artwork shall be appropriately scaled for its location, shall not create an adverse impact on the use of the library, and shall be physically accessible to members of the public with mobility-related disabilities. The Arts Commission shall also select an artist to create the artwork. The Library Commission shall appoint an individual who may be a member of the Library Commission to serve on the Art Commission's selection committee for the artist. Additionally, in selecting the design and location and in overseeing the construction and placement of the artwork, the Commission shall solicit input from the Library Commission and the city librarian or his or her designee. By no later than December 31st, 2020, the artwork shall be completed and placed in its approved location. So at the beginning of this project, the Arts Commission identified the following project goals. The artwork will honor Dr. Maya Angelou and include a significant figurative representation of Dr. Angelou as part of its design. By honoring one of the most important literary artists and activists of our time, the artwork will be an ever-present role model and inspiration to girls and young women. Recognizing Dr. Angelou's contribution as a means of expressing the value the city places on the contributions and achievements of all women. And while most of the sculptures in the city's collection that honor individuals recognize white men, the sculpture of Dr. Angelou will redress this gender imbalance by not only honoring a woman, but a woman of color. And I'd also like to note that in addition to meeting these specific project goals, we also endeavor to meet the goals of the civic art collection more broadly. Those goals are available on the San Francisco Arts Commission website. I won't list them all here, but we also endeavor to meet those same goals.
So here are some probably general areas that we're focusing on to place the artwork, which is on Larkin Street?
The Larkin Plaza.
Yeah, Larkin Plaza. This is an aerial view.
So this is an overview of our artist selection process to date. On November 1st of last year, we issued a request for qualifications for this project. We received 111 applications. That deadline closed on January 27th of 2019. Shortly after, on February 9th, we assembled an artist qualification panel. We had our first selection panel on March 13th, which involved selecting 3 finalists for this project who were invited to develop site-specific conceptual proposals. And I would like to make a note here that the notes for which the Visual Arts Committee and the full commission approved the finalists, those dates are actually incorrect. The Visual Arts Committee approved the 3 finalists for this project on March 20th, and the full commission approved the finalists on April 1st. So if you could please make a note of that. So our artist qualification panel was comprised of 2 outside arts professionals, Indira Allegra, an artist and local independent curator, and Angela Hennessy, an artist and associate professor of fine arts at CCA. And our third artist qualification panelist was Susan Pontius, who's the director of the Civic Art Collection and Public Art Program for the San Francisco Arts Commission. So as I mentioned, these qualification panelists reviewed the applications of 111 applicants and reviewed them and scored them using the following criteria: artistic excellence, that the artist's work is judged to be appropriate to the goals of the civic art collection in this project, and based on their professional experience. And after scoring all the applicants, 13 of them were scored within a competitive range to be considered by the artist selection panel.
The selection panel, the members of that panel are listed: Indira Allegra, J.D. Beltran, Angela Hennessy, myself, Guy Johnson, who is Dr. Angelou's son, Susan Mall, Commissioner Susan Mall, Ellen O, and Andrea Shorter. Again, the process is listed. Artistic excellence and appropriateness for the goals of the project were things that we sat with as we viewed all the art that we kind of sat with that day, and we came up with 3 finalists that we forwarded to recommend to the Arts Commission to come up with renderings.
So these we're going to give you a quick overview of the artists who were selected as finalists, who are currently very diligently working on developing their conceptual proposals for this project and are very excited to be working on this. The first finalist is Jules Arthur, who is a New York-based artist whose artistic focus is rooted in the discoveries of triumphant moments within the African and African-American experience. Classically trained in sculpture and the study and representation of the human form, Jules received a BFA from the New York School of the Arts in 1999 and has been a member of the Art Students League of New York since 2006. His work is in the public collections of the African American Museum in Dallas, Texas, the Schomburg Cultural Center for Research in Black Culture in New York, and the Hutchins Center for African and African American Research at Harvard University.
Our next artist is Kenyatta A.C. Hinkle from UC Berkeley. She's an interdisciplinary visual artist, writer, and performer. Her practice consists of working with representations of women from the African diaspora who are both real and conjured up through the process of collage and reimagining perceptions placed onto them. Kenyatta received an MFA from the California Institute of the Arts in 2012 and was a U.S. Fulbright Fellow in Lagos, Nigeria from 2015 to 16. A 2019 SF SECA Award recipient. Kenyatta's artwork and experimental writing has been exhibited and performed at the Studio Museum in Harlem, the Hammer Museum in Los Angeles, and the Museum of the African Diaspora MOAD here in San Francisco.
And our third finalist, also based in Berkeley, is artist Lava Thomas. Lava Thomas's studio practice takes a wide range of thematic and material approaches and is informed by feminist discourse, alternative approaches to portraiture, cyclical and religious ideas of the sacred, and African-American devotional and protest traditions. Lava studied at UCLA's School of Art Practice and received a BFA from the California College of the Arts. Her work has been exhibited at the Museum of the African Diaspora in San Francisco, the International Print Center in New York, the California African American Museum in Los Angeles, and the DeRosa Contemporary Art Center in Napa. So the next steps for this project are as follows. Our artists, as I said, are working on their conceptual design proposals for this project. They've already had presented myself and our public art staff with some initial sketches and ideas for which they've received initial feedback. July 17th through 31st, their final conceptual design proposals will be on display here at the library for 2 weeks for public comment, as well as on the San Francisco Arts Commission website for public comment. So we will, of course, circulate the link to the website when those proposals are posted so that those can be circulated within your networks for public comment. We are going to be scheduling the final artist selection panel, during which the artist to whom this commission will be awarded will be selected the week of August 5th. The deadline's been extended somewhat due to a personal circumstance with one of the artists. So the week of August 5th is when the final artist selection panel will be held. We're working on the scheduling of that now. It's always a little bit tricky with so many folks whose schedules we have to wrangle, but as soon as that date is confirmed, it will be posted on the Arts Commission's website at the link that's on this slide here. And then after the artist is selected, it'll be the artist will be presented to our Visual Arts Committee for approval on August 21st and to the full commission for approval on September 9th, after which point they will go into contract with the Arts Commission and we'll get rolling on the commission.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for the presentation.
Are there any questions? Public questions? Public comment, sorry. Commissioners, any questions? Oh, sorry, Peter.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. Thank you for this presentation. The comparisons that are set out in the goals note under project goals. There's a comparison of sculptures. While most of the sculptures in this, I'm reading from the goals, while most of the sculptures in the city's collection that honor individuals recognize white men, the sculpture of Dr. Angelo will redress this gender imbalance by not only honoring a woman, but a woman of color. But we're not getting a sculpture for sure. We're getting one of the finalists is a sculptor, and the other two don't appear to be. I went to the meeting, I believe it was on April 1st, where the finalists were discussed, and I commented that I thought all of them were looked like good artists and could do interesting work. But I do think that sculpture has a kind of permanence, a kind of a sense of quality, of permanence, of seriousness. And you are talking here about comparing sculptures in the city, men versus women. It also was never clear to me how the legislation was changed from talking about putting up a sculpture to having that crossed out and changed to artwork. So it seemed as though there might have been some behind-the-scenes effort to get artwork that wasn't necessarily sculpture. In any event, I do think that when we're talking about sculptures as one of the goals, and when we're comparing sculptures of men versus sculptures of women and making an effort to expand the honoring of women, I think that there would be a preference for something that's serious, that's permanent, or at least has as much permanence as we can get in art, which would be a sculpture. Thanks very much.
Additional public comment? Commissioners? Connie?
Thank you very much for the thorough presentation. It's really exciting, and I want to also thank Commissioner Mall for her service. This is a wonderful opportunity, and I think it's going to be great to have the three proposals on view here for public comment. And I just want to thank you for this opportunity for the library to participate in making the city's art program more diverse and more engaging for a larger population. So thank you.
Peter?
Could you clarify quickly for the record the expected format of the pieces of art from these artists?
Absolutely happy to do that. The images, the artworks that you saw by the selected artists show that they have a broad and a diverse interdisciplinary skill set. All of the artists are proposing sculpture for this site. So these will be three-dimensional objects that will be placed on the plaza, made from very noble permanent materials. It will be a sculpture that we anticipate having a lifespan of at least 25 years, if not longer. So we're working very closely with the artists to help them identify what we call noble materials that will hold up very well over time, and also will be easy to maintain and will continue to look good over time.
Great, thank you. And my other question was relating to the public comment section. How exactly will the panel factor in the period of collecting public comment into its decision-making process?
Sure. So this is a standard process for all of our public art projects. After the public comments have been submitted for the two-week period of time when the proposals are on our website and on public view, those comments are printed out in full for the panelists to review. The project manager for the project will also summarize those comments and present those to the panelists during the final selection panel. So those will be available for everyone to hear and to assess. So the panelists do take those comments very much into consideration when they're voting on the finalist proposals.
Great, thank you so much.
You want to say? Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Naomi, for the presentation, and thank you, Susan, or Commissioner Mall, for being on the panel. I have a question regarding the display of the proposals. What kind of marketing or public PR are you doing regarding this?
We work very closely with our Director of Communications to establish an outreach strategy for each project, sort of based on the community stakeholders where the work was going to be presented and cited. So it's different for every project, but we really work with our Director of Communications to do that outreach. And of course, we'll work very closely with our partners here at the library to make sure that that notification of those proposals being on display will be widely circulated and everyone will be made fully aware as best as we're able. And I'd just like to also note that it's really been great working with the library, and they've been incredible partners on this project.
We appreciate that. Also, even though it says September 9th is when the commission approves it, I know it's supposed to be installed no later than December 2020.
Yes.
Not going to take a year, or it's just you guys are ahead of the curve?
We're ahead of, well, hopefully. No, we're ahead of the curve. We're aiming for fall 2020 installation. So approximately a year after the artist has been approved by the commission is sort of our overall timeline.
Okay, thank you.
Jackie, I have a question. When the art is displayed, are they going to be maquettes or drawings?
Yes, so we have a very sort of standard template for proposal boards that are very visual heavy, and we try and minimize the amount of text so that folks can see as clearly as possible renderings of the sculpture itself, of the artwork itself, but also in situ, so what the artwork will look like placed in the plaza. So the artists work with graphic designers to do sort of site-specific renderings of what the work will look like to scale if it were to be realized on this particular site. So there'll be many different, and there'll also be an overview of the different materials that will be used, color palette if that's applicable. All that will be included in the narrative on the proposal board as well. Yeah, but it's very visual heavy, so you'll get a strong sense of exactly what the final work will look like.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, John, did you? I'm sorry.
I'm a curious fella, and with the art, all I hear from some quarter is that the beauty is in the beholder's eye. If that's the case, how does the Art Commission make a decision into the final choice?
That's very much up to the selection panelists, which is why we have such a diverse range of people on our panels, and they're very specific for each project. So it's really up to our panelists, and they vote very much. Of course, everyone has a subjective viewpoint on what kind of art they like and what they like to see, but they are very much keeping in mind the project goals and making sure that the project goals that have been outlined as presented are being met as closely as possible, and so are the civic art collection goals. But yeah, art is subjective, and I don't think we've ever had a project where everybody's loved it. That's art is just that way. So, but we of course strive to realize very beautiful, long-standing works of art that many people can appreciate for many years.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. The discussion on library collections.
Thank you, Vice President Mall. Library staff appreciates this opportunity to present a report on library collections this evening. Circulation of physical and digital collections is a core function of the library, and the San Francisco Public Library invests more per capita in our collections than any peer library in the country. As a result, San Francisco Public Library has one of the deepest, richest collections of any urban library. It's my pleasure to introduce our presenter, our Chief of Collections and Technical Services, Shelley Cocking.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, I'm Shelley Cocking, and as Michael said, I run the Collections and Technical Services Division of the library. The role of my unit is to purchase both our physical and electronic collections and get them out into the hands of our community as quickly as we can in the ways that they prefer. I'm really happy to be able to report that, I don't know if you noticed the latest city survey about how well different agencies are doing in the city. The library was actually scored an A-, which is the highest score ever given to a city department. And specifically, when they asked the question about how do they like our collections, we also received an A-. So the staff in my unit are clearly doing a good job at what they are supposed to be doing. So, however, I do want to mention that over the past decade, the way our community uses material, they look up information, view media, and just read for pleasure has changed a lot. So my unit has had to expand what our traditional idea of collections are and how we serve our patrons. So I'm going to start by taking a little bit look at our circulation statistics. Our physical circulation peaked around the years 2010, 2012. This isn't a big surprise because that was the time of the bad economic environment in the United States. And when people don't have a lot of money, they come to the libraries to get them for free. It was also the height of our BLIP program. So we were having parties and opening new branches sometimes every other month for a while there, and had to get the collections out there, and people were really checking out material. However, at the same time, publishers decided that they were comfortable, after all, to allow libraries to actually purchase ebooks right along with when they became available to the general public on the street date. So you can see by the green line, our e-circulation really started to take off at that point. And some of it has shifted over from print to the e-circulation. According to Library Journal's latest survey about how library circulation is doing in general, nationwide, libraries are seeing about, on average, a 0.5 drop in circulation. I'm happy to be able to let you know that San Francisco has actually saw a 2.2 increase last year, and so far we're aiming at about a 6% increase in circulation this year. And in no small part, we've been able to do that great increase in our circulation by the healthy budget that this board has actually provided us with every year. On one part, our physical collection budget that you can see here in the blue bar has stayed healthy and actually grown over time. That's really important for us to be able to keep very attractive collections in our branches. And even though we might need a few less copies of some of the titles, having a healthy budget has let us actually expand the breadth of our collection. Over the past 6 years, we've actually been able to increase the number of titles we add to the collection each year by 20%. During that same time, our e-collection budget, you can see, has grown significantly. This is really important for us to have such a good, healthy e-collections budget so that we can continue to meet this new demand of our users without having to impact the physical collection in any way. So while physical circulation is down, not all formats are seeing a drop in circulation in the same way. I thought it may make it a little easier to understand this by showing you a couple pie charts. Fiscal year 2009 is the last time we just counted only physical circulation. And you can see from the dark gray and light gray sections that book and audiobooks made up 63% of the circulation at that point. But last year, if you take a look at those same areas, I gotta check my notes. The books and audiobooks and all their formats made up 72% of the circulation. So the areas really seeing the hit are more in video and music. This isn't really surprising if you think about modern day use of media and how people can sit comfortably in their home and at a click of a button simply be able to just check out the material, get access to a movie, maybe just spend $3 to rent a film on Amazon Prime, or be able to have a subscription to Spotify and listen to streaming music whenever they want. So it's a new world for the library market, and we're trying to figure out ways to be able to meet these new demands that allows our community to still think of us as relevant in their daily lives. I'm going to take a deeper dive into our statistics just really quickly. Ebooks, as you can see, once we got full access to publishers' titles, circulation went crazy. And while we're not seeing as big of a growth annually, it's still seeing a big increase in that area. Audiobooks is the big change, though, for us. Back in the days of just the physical audiobooks, when you had to check out those big boxes with all the CDs, it was only about 2% of our overall circulation. But with digital audiobooks that our patrons can just check out and download onto their phone, especially with Hoopla, which has no waiting, we've seen amazing increase in circulation there. And it's actually up to being 8% of our overarching circulation. Streaming video, we haven't seen quite the growth there, and that's mainly because it's still a very young format for the library market. And as in the early days of publishers not wanting to sell to libraries, we're still in that mode with the studios trying to figure out how much of a financial impact it will be if they allow libraries to provide their patrons these films. E-music is the one area we've seen a little bit of a decrease. I'm not too surprised there. Even though our patrons really liked Hoopla when we first got it, and we're happy to be able to download albums, it's really easy now to be able to find free streaming music out on the internet, so that's not a big surprise for us. E-magazines is the newest format, and you can see real healthy growth there. And again, it's still young, and publishers are getting used to the idea of providing us with their titles. And as we get new titles and new platforms, I expect that area to grow. As part of these talks, I always like to be able to show off what the most popular items were for the past year. Here we go. First, we have the top 10 books, and as you can see, not surprisingly, the top 2 titles are on political topics, which isn't surprising for San Francisco. And the next few are actually titles that they have the One City, One Book, and on the same page, a couple of those titles in the top 10. That's also not surprising since Michelle's staff does such a great job marketing those titles, and we get a lot of copies, and they really get out there. For media, the top DVD or film, I should say, since it has more than one format nowadays, is The Shape of Water. And not surprisingly, for the music albums, it's the soundtrack to Hamilton, which is just across the street. And Smile, that graphic novel series is continuously popular with children, and I'm not surprised to see that. And Hate U Give was made into a movie this year, so it's been really popular as well. So as I mentioned, my unit has to rethink about how we are providing our material to our patrons. And one of the things we used to do at the height of the physical circuit was think about how can we get lots of material through the building, out the door, and into their hands. So we'd gotten that down pretty good, and we're trying to refocus our work on how can we best meet the needs of the browser. We know people like to be able to get things immediately these days. That's what they expect after all the internet use that they do. So one of the things we do is gather lots of data and try to predict how can we figure out which branch having that book sit on will be most likely to find that browser. And we purchased a piece of software that helps us with this process called ESPE. A few years back, it's called Evidence-Based Selection Planning. And basically how this works is our librarians create a shopping cart, put lots of titles in it, and they send it off to be ranked by ESPE, and momentarily they get it right back, and it gives them a score on how likely the title is to do well in our system, how many copies they think we need, and also which branches they think a browser is much more likely to find it and pick it up. So we use that to help us figure out where to buy the physical material. Another way of getting that immediate access is a pay-per-view model. That gives the full access to a catalog on our different platforms. Hoopla and Canopy are our 2 most popular of this type. And the library provides the patrons the full catalog, and we don't get charged till somebody actually checks it out. And there's also no waiting. So if hundreds of people want to just use that same title at that time, they can go ahead and check it out immediately. The last browsing project I want to tell you is a pretty exciting one we have coming out to the branches soon. It's called Lucky Day Collections. And how this works is we're going to buy additional copies of the most popular titles we have in our system. And these are not going to be used to fill the holds queue. That we're going to continue to treat the way we fill holds queues the same way, so there will be no change there. But these are going to just be sent out to a branch, be sitting on the shelf, and patrons won't see them in the catalog. They'll just have to come down to their local branch, see what's there, see if it's their lucky day to get the Michelle Obama's most popular book that's out there right now, and check it out immediately, no waiting. A couple of other libraries around the area have this, and it's been very successful, so we're anticipating it working well here. But we're going to start by having a pilot program so we can kind of work out the kinks of the project and make sure we know how many copies to buy for each location before we roll it out to the rest of the locations. I'm going to end the discussion by just highlighting a couple of our new reference database type things that we've purchased. The first is a universal search engine for all of our databases. This is basically Google for reference databases. We've had them for many years, and the one we used to have was kind of clunky. The search results took a long time to show up, and the page wasn't very clear what you were getting, and had to do a lot of clicking to delve deeper to see what you got. This new graphical interface is very fast. It's easy to use the side facets to just narrow down your search better. And then it's very easy to tell what you're going to get. And when you click on that link, you go directly to the article and you can start reading immediately. Another exciting reference tool that we've been able to get is the San Francisco Business Times. They actually publish the Book of Lists, which is one of our most popular reference titles. And we've only been able to have it available, for people coming down and asking for it in the building. So this publisher hasn't wanted to play with libraries previously, so we're excited that they finally came up with a library platform, and we've been able to add this to our collection, and people can get access to this very popular item from their homes. And I'm going to end up with our latest in our digital magazine platforms. The previous ones were mainly focused at English language, so I'm excited about this one, which is called Kono. And they have over 200 Chinese and Japanese titles that are available for people to use just anywhere using an iPhone or an iPad or even the computer. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm here, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Shelley. Public comment?
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. Thank you for the presentation. There's a number of concerns that we've got and have spoken about before. First of all, in the introduction, the newly appointed city librarian boasted about how our library has a big budget for materials. But what he didn't say was, as a proportion of the overall budget, it's not so great. Typically, libraries use a percentage of their budget for books as an indication of how much they value and how much they prioritize books and materials. Our library is fantastically wealthy, thanks to the voters who have given the library set-asides and so on. Library Preservation Fund. Our library, the last time I checked with the Public Library Data Service, has approximately triple the average budget of libraries of its comparable size, serving 500,000 to 1 million people. And it's head and shoulders above any other. So to say that we spend more money on materials as some example of wonderfulness, well, maybe and maybe not. It's not wonderful as a percentage of the budget. Second, with respect to digital wonderfulness and demand and increase in growth, well, it started from pretty much zero. And what I'm very concerned about is that many materials are only available in digital now. They are not offered as books or as reference materials in printed format. So a certain amount of that increase comes from simply forcing people, you can't get it if you don't have the digital access. And then there's a really serious problem with digital access. There are materials that are also available in digital as well as in print, but there are now more and more materials only available in digital. And you can't get it if you don't pay to play, if you don't have a device of your own that has the technology, that's got the platform that can read the material that's being offered, you're just out of luck. And I think that's terrible. The library has, as its slogan, free and equal access to, etc. And that's not equal if I come into the library without a Kindle or without all the other platforms, and I simply cannot see any of the materials that are going for digital. That is expanding the digital divide and making an ever-growing gap between those who have and those who have not. And that's wrong.
Thank you. Commissioner, comments, questions? Connie?
Thank you so much for your presentation. That was fascinating. I have to admit that I have a new addiction, which is I listen to audiobooks from the library, and I'm doing it about at least one book a week, and I'm just loving it. So I think the circulation rate is incorporating my new addiction. I have a couple questions about the circulation rates. How does our circulation rate compare per capita to other urban environments? Do you have any sense of that?
There was a controller's office study, I want to say around 2016, 2017, they do a periodic barometer, and I don't know if our chief analytics officer is here. I want to say it compares very favorably. I recall we were in the top 3, but I can look that up and find that for you, for our peer group.
Yeah. And you mentioned that our circulation rates are projected to increase 6% this year, but the national average is decreasing by a 0.5 percentage point.
Yeah. So last year, Library Journal puts out every year a survey of circulation and what's circulating and how each library is doing. And so overall, in the U.S., libraries on average a 0.5% decrease.
And is there a reason for that, or?
Our collection budget is the main thing, because we, as I mentioned, it's great that we keep our physical collection budget the same, because most libraries haven't had that opportunity, so they have to decide between buying more physical books or, feeding the ever-hungry monster of holds. Hoopla is expensive for us. It's not per use, but because it's popular, we have to be able to spend money on that. And then when you're trying to design that, and your budget is maybe for a city our size, but only 10 million, you have to cut somewhere, or you have to keep the number of checkouts. We allow, I think it's 20 now for Hoopla, where most other libraries are only doing 6. Because that's all they can afford. So we've had the pleasure of being able to provide our patrons with more than other cities have, because we have the budget to do so.
Well, anyway, I want to thank you and your staff for doing such a great job as a user of all of this material,
Thank
as
you.
both the physical book and the audiobooks. I really appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael?
Thank you, Vice President Mall. I've got the answer to your question. Commissioner Wolf, our Chief Analytics Officer, pulled it up like that. So from the 2016 citywide benchmarking report, San Francisco Public Library was in the top 5 nationally for material circulation per capita.
Great.
That was across the board, books, everything?
The entire country, yes.
Yeah, we count circulation, total for, like book format. We wouldn't include databases and stuff like that in it.
Shelley, I'm sorry, I do have one question. Thank you very much for the presentation. That ESPE database?
Yeah.
How long has that been around?
So it's not a database, but rather a service provided by an actual database that we purchase. So the main product is called Collection HQ, which our librarians help to use with weeding. And we've had that probably about 8 years. So that's collecting circulation statistics and holds, and we even now upload ebook information to it. And they had all this rich data, and they decided, we could sell this other product. So it's really an add-on to our shopping tool. And it's, you just take your shopping cart, like as if you're in Amazon, and you click a little button, and then it goes off and makes a cute little icon and then comes back, and you have this extra data. And it's all based, they pull a bunch of information from publishers, what they're expecting to produce for titles, because that usually has something to do with how much marketing money they're going to put in, and it, figures out where people are picking up holds rather than where we actually have the book housed in our system. So there's a lot of data going in.
Yeah, because you had mentioned that it can break it down to the branch.
Yeah, it does. It gives you a list of branches. And, I used to do the graphic novel ordering for years. And, well, most of them are pretty, as librarians, we do this research and it's all kind of in our head and we kind of make our best guess, but they're very educated guess. And most of the time it would come back with oh, yeah. But then it'd get some branch and you go, oh, that's weird. Or a subject, I was really surprised that World War I graphic novels were really popular. because that's not something I personally read. But then I was sitting on BART and I saw these tech people coming out of, Twitter, and then get on BART and then start reading these World War I graphic novels after I got all these high ratings for it in ESPE. So you actually discover new trends that you might not notice on your own. So.
Thank you.
Hi, Shelley. Thanks so much for putting together the presentation. I just had one quick question. I was looking through the ebook growth and the e-media growth charts, and that just got me thinking, have you or your team ever done any sort of analyses around, for the types of people that are using library services and checking out materials, how they, the format in which they're using certain materials? So, for example, do we know that, there are proportionally more library users who only check out ebooks, or do we have a lot of folks who are actually checking out all types of media across physical, ebooks, audiobooks, etc.? Has that ever?
Yeah, we actually do a lot of research on that, and there's a product called Analytics on Demand, and you can take a look at who's using your library and then pull out each of the different platforms that. So Overdrive versus Access 360 versus Hoopla versus Canopy versus Zinio, and take a look at who the clientele is, and we've kind of used that to decide, what kind of subjects that it breaks it down in these funny names of groups, like I'm trying to remember one, like Silver Sophisticates. Yeah, that's the one that most people assume that the majority of ebook readers were Silver Sophisticates, which is very common in libraries nationwide because you can increase the font size on ebooks, so you don't have to just read large print anymore. And when we did it, they were up there, but only like 6 in line. We have Cosmopolitan Achievers, and then Urban Ed,
Personas.
Yeah, they make them into market things so that you can kind of get an idea of who the person is. And then they even, there's some for ebooks where they break it down by BISAC, which is subject headings that bookstores use. So you can actually go in and say, what kind of books are Urban Edge reading? And should I buy more of that for that platform? Because that's who tends to use Access 360 versus Overdrive. And so we can look really closely at that and make changes in how we order.
Very cool.
So
thanks.
Thank you, Shelley. I sort of remember, or help me here if I am misremembering, that the circulation of ebooks went up as traffic became worse and worse and worse. Am I right about that?
Yes, digital audiobooks. Yeah, and that is very unique to San Francisco because apparently physical audiobooks are still popular in like the Midwest. Anywhere you have to drive for long distances, it's not a big deal to just keep, shoving the disc in, but you're probably going to have spotty internet connection. But here in the Bay Area, where a lot of us, like myself, are crammed into BART, or Muni trying to commute somewhere, it's a lot easier to have a digital audiobook on your phone, and then you can stand like this with everybody else and listen to your audiobook. You don't want to have the book in your hand, which is kind of hard while you're going like this. So,
right. Yeah. Well, thank you. Okay. Oh, you have a question? Sorry.
I've got a couple of questions. One, with the books that are physical, available, and digital, how does one determine what proportion to buy that's physical and proportion of digital? Because I look at the thing as a so-called total cost of ownership. If you buy a book, the total cost of ownership is what you pay for the book, plus all the storage space and disposal and all that you have to take care of. But if you were buying a digital one, you don't have less of a concern of storage, and that's all. Anyway, my question is that how does one decide what is the optimal sort of ratio when you buy physical book and the digital?
So with physical books, we actually have to make a decision immediately when we're purchasing how many copies we want to get. We can always add to that, but so when we buy them, we decide how many and we'll purchase that amount and then add to it if we get more holds and that amount can cover. With ebooks, it's pretty easy. We just buy one copy. And then they have the platforms all have these little software products that'll like tell you, oh, so you've got more than a 3-to-1 holds ratio, here, buy this many more copies. And then you just go in and purchase more at that point. So we always just commit to one and then wait to see if we have more demand, because it's the best financial way to handle that situation. And it's so easy, you just buy more copies and they're immediately available. It's not like with the physical book where somebody's got to buy it and it's got to get shipped to us, and then somebody's got to put Mylar on it and a spine label. It takes a lot of time. So it's a different method.
Shelley, correct me if I'm wrong, but your team has a system and a methodology for monitoring how many holds are on physical copies, and when you meet a certain threshold, maybe 3 holds per 1 copy, that triggers an additional purchase. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. So in all of our different, both physical and with like access, if we hit the 3-to-1 holds to holding ratio, we start thinking about adding more copies. And so that's what triggers it. We prefer to get the count right the first time and get those copies in. Like we just bought Captain America, the movie, and we were like, oh, should we buy 400 copies of the DVD and 300 of the Blu-ray? We really have to think that through and try to make our best guess, because especially with films, you got to get them on street date, because 3 months down the line, Amazon's going to be renting it for $4, and then people are less likely to come in. So that's the kind of thinking you have to do when you're, and I have a whole team of people who do that for me. So they're doing a great job.
So when you say 3-to-1 ratio, if there's a popular book, then initially 3-to-1 ratio, you are committed to many, many more copies.
Yeah.
But in the future years, you actually are down, you still need to be subscribing to more than just 1 copy?
For ebooks or physical books?
Ebook.
For ebooks. So it depends on the publisher. They're very different. Some publishers like Random House, we have to buy the copies. So yes, Michelle Obama's book in tenure will still have all those hundreds of copies sitting there in our Overdrive platform that we bought for it. However, other ones do a license for 26 circulation. So as the circs are used up, that copy disappears. And some of them just do a 1-year license or a 2-year license. So you're just licensing it for a little while. So then after the usage is down, we just don't renew those licenses. And those costs are obviously a lot less expensive than the Random House books.
Okay. So it's pretty complex to sound like that. My simple question turned out to be
it's not. Yeah, with the ebooks, the licensing is always very complicated. It would be nice if it was like physical books and it was just one option.
My second question is that just for those who do not use library, they buy books from Amazon or whatever, then after they have bought a few books, then Amazon starting to say that you may want this, you may want that. Now for the library users, are there such recommendation facilities?
Yeah, actually in our catalog at BiblioCommons, when you're looking at a title, down in the lower right-hand corner, there's a little list of suggested other readings. It's a product called Novelist. It's not for every book that we own, because they don't have every book that we own in their database, but it will do titles. Like, oh, you like that one? Here's a bunch of others. Then there's, of course, on BiblioCommons, those lists that our users make. So if you hit one that you like and then you see a list that somebody who did on similar titles or things that a subject you like, you can go into that list and also look at their recommended titles. So we have 2 different ways we do that.
So would you happen to know how effective that recommendation system is?
I don't really know if we have a way to track that. The lists are free to us. Our staff creates them, and I can definitely see when the staff creates them that we have to buy more copies of them. So I know that those are definitely being looked at by patrons, because we always go, oh, here we go. Oh, that's why. Okay, we just might as well look at that list and go through and buy more of all of those. But with the other ones and with Novelist, I haven't seen it have an impact. Okay. It might be, but it's just not something that's come up with purchasing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think the city librarian's report is next.
Yes. Thank you, Vice President Mall. We have a number of reports this evening, and I'm pleased to introduce our first presenter, Michelle Jeffers, Chief of Community Programs and partnerships with exhibitions and programming highlights.
Hi, Commissioners. Okay, here we go. Oh, that says the same thing, programming and exhibition highlights, and I'm still Michelle Jeffers. So I'm here to talk to you about Asian Pacific Islander American Heritage Month. I hope that you guys were able to pick up or were put in your packets one of our beautiful brochures celebrating this month, throughout the month of May. We have programs, exhibits, events, craft programs, music programs, a lot of food and cooking classes. In fact, we have 150 programs in all for this Heritage Month. That is more than we've ever had for any single Heritage Month in our past. I have to really hand it to the branch librarians and the staff here at the Main who just went above and beyond in developing creative programs for all the San Franciscans in town, because they just saw a lot of interest in this theme. We are also the official partner of the city's Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, and they really rely on the rich programming we do to fill out the city's month, so I'm proud of that. One of the highlights of this month was our opening night program, which was author Helen Zia in conversation with broadcast journalist Sherry Hu. It was presented in partnership with the 1990 Institute, a San Francisco-based organization that works on improving relations between the USA and China. And Sherry, as a journalist, conducted this amazing interview of Helen, really delved into Helen's own background and told stories that were very moving about Helen's own family and their fleeing of China, stories that her mother had never told their children until Helen started writing this book. So it was really an honor and a really wonderful way to kick off this month with such an important program. We had many other author talks this month as well. We had the launch of Malika Garib's Filipino-Egyptian memoir. But still to come, it's not too late. There are many more programs to take in the second half of the month. We have Meredith Oda coming in to talk about Japanese Americans and the remaking of San Francisco. We have Shanta Nimbark Sakharov's new cookbook being launched here, Cooking Together, about vegetarian cooking, and Mei Li Chai's short story collection, Useful Phrases for Immigrants. In terms of film, we've had a number of great films this month, including our continuing partnership with the Center for Asian American Media and the screening of their noted documentary, First Person Plural. We've also had films at a number of branches that are commemorating the Golden Spike's 150th anniversary about the Chinese who built the Transcontinental Railroad. And still to come this month, a little bit of a late-breaking film and television program with the New York Times. It's a New York Times Talk that's coming in on May 28th with the writer and director Nanachka Khan. Khan launched her television career writing for Malcolm in the Middle, the television show. Then she created the show Fresh Off the Boat, and she just has her directing debut with the new film that's just come out, Always Be My Maybe. And she'll be joined by the New York Times reporter Sopan Deb in conversation, and they'll be talking about Asians making it in the entertainment business, crashing through boundaries, striving for diversity and comedy in an age of anxiety. So I hope you make it. It'll be right here. You know the location. We've had a number of rich performance programs this month, too, from many regions of the Asian diaspora, from Chinese, Polynesian, and Indian dance troupes coming through to taiko drumming and Asian rock and roll. And for food, like I mentioned, we have food. We always have food. We're a library. We're big on food. So we've got to taste many of the delicious flavors of Asia with our food programs, including formal Japanese tea ceremonies, Asian snack trials for teenagers, and we are making kimchi at Noe Valley next week if you want to join us. So I hope everyone comes out to one of these, again, 151 with that late-breaking one programs this month. I also wanted to highlight Dia de los Niños, Dia de los Libros, which happened at the end of April. This was the 20th annual Day of Children and Day of Books. Dia, as you know, emphasizes the importance of literacy for children from all backgrounds and welcomes children and their families to enjoy an afternoon filled with music, dancing, and free books under the sun at Parque Niños Unidos at 23rd and Folsom Street. That's been our park location for the last several years, and it's been a tremendous success for us. San Francisco has been celebrating DIA, obviously, since 1999. I just said it was 20 years old. The initiative actually started 2 years before we started with it by the author Pat Mora and Reforma as an initiative to celebrate literacy for children. Our goal every year is to provide every children who attends with at least one free book to add to their home library and free entertainment and excitement around literacy-based activities. Since its inception in 1999, we've distributed more than 25,000 free books to the community. In recent years, children have sometimes been able to take home more than one book because our partners will also bring books to distribute. So this year, I think children got 4 different books to take home. The 2019 festival was organized in collaboration with a number of community partners, so it's not just us doing it all on our own. San Francisco Rec and Parks plays a big part in helping us with the site location. Jumpstart SF, Mission Promise Neighborhood, the Good Samaritan Family Resource Center, the Felton Institute. They're all part of the San Francisco Early Literacy Network. We had entertainers including Loco Bloco, Big Top Bubbles, Cherry Hoops, she's the hula hooper, in case you didn't know, and Maria Luna. Community agencies are also invited to table. We close the street outside the park, and community agencies can table with us and provide activities for children. So in addition to the library and our partners' tables, we also had the following organizations join us out there: Adobe Books, Golden Bridges School, the Mexican Museum, Tree Frog Treks, the National Park Service, Caracen, Our Family Coalition, Mission Head Start, Mission Graduates, Nature Cart, Tandem Partners in Early Learning, Red Poppy Theater, and the Homeless Prenatal, and the Free Farm Stand. So it was really a successful program, and that concludes my exhibition and programming highlights. And
Thank you, Michelle. Next up, we have our Youth Services Manager, Christy Estrovitz, with a report on our upcoming signature summer learning program, Summer Stride.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. I have the pleasure of co-chairing the Summer Learning Committee. We meet every other Wednesday to design, curate, and present our Summer Learning Program. This is the premier literacy campaign that we present as a system for our whole city. This year, we're really excited because we have a new partner at the table. We have Mayor London Breed for the first time in many, many years having a mayoral imprint on our program. She reached out to us because she cares deeply about children and opportunities for all youth, and she wanted to connect her love of reading with the library. So we absolutely said yes. So you see her welcome letter to San Francisco families, inviting them to get involved with a little personal note about her story growing up reading. As you know, she was a patron of the Western Addition Branch Library, and we're just delighted to have her support this year. Also, this program is proudly presented in partnership with the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library, our fiscal sponsor. And this is our 6th year of collaboration with Chronicle Books. Each year we look over illustrated books coming out from Chronicle Books and select one to rally behind. This year it's Bikes for Sale, illustrated by Zachariah O'Hara. So we commissioned original art that you will see in every single library and over 100 transit shelters and in parks all around San Francisco this summer. This is, again, our 4th year of partnership with the National Park Service and the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy, and we've been partnering with SFUSD for I don't know how long, a very, very long time. And it is my pleasure to share with you our PSA. You are the first to view this. Let's see if I got it.
Great.
So I have a little more to share with you, but I hope that gives you a little taste of what's coming up this summer and the feel of summer. So these are the key assets that will be in all of our locations. Our tracker, we're bringing back the favorite elements of the weekly raffle at every single location, shuttles from branches to local national parks, STEM programs, nature connections, and we're also bringing back one of my favorite elements, which is the Reading Ranger badge. So when you sign up this year, you can earn this just by signing up at your library and committing to reading, learning, listening, and visiting the library for 20 hours. And with that, you can find out how to do that with the Stride Guide, our program guide, which features over 1,000 free programs for children, adults, teens, everyone. You'll see at the top there is our direct mailer. So this is our second year doing a direct mail to every single San Francisco Unified School District student and their families. So that's over 56,000 students will receive this colorful mailer next week. And it contains an invitation to get involved at your library this summer. It also has the curated recommended reading list. This is a collaboration with the teacher librarians at the school district and our collection development team too. It's magnificent. The books are available in all of our locations, many formats, and in many languages. And this all points to the prize tote. This tote bag, you can't buy it anywhere in the world. You can only earn it by participating at the San Francisco Public Library. These are the commissioned posters. You will see these on over 100 transit shelters this summer. That's like 3 times as many as we had last year. So I look forward to seeing you tag them in your social media, Summer Stride or Libraries for All, to show your Summer Stride engagement with us. I want to just mention we really commit to summer learning opportunities for youth. We hold youth at the center of this program, and that's why we present so many STEM learning activities. Every single library, every single week of the summer, will offer a free STEM program for students. This is messy design thinking, 21st century learning skills inside and outside our libraries. It's super, super fun. You'll notice that we have some older youth in there. Those are our teen leaders. They're part of the Yell program. This is our 3rd year presenting that. That'll be at 10 sites. And we really rely on teen volunteers to help and support these programs. Last year we had over 800 teen volunteers. So we're looking at that number again this year. And with that, I just want to cast the light on some of our program partners. Some of these we program all through the year, and some of them, they really come out in the summer and help us present interactive, hands-on learning opportunities. We partner with our museum partners like the Contemporary Jewish Museum, bringing their Art on the Go programs into our libraries. We have a program with the Children's Creativity Museum. It's a 4-part health and wellness series at a couple of our branches. We have the Grammy-nominated Alphabet Rockers doing concerts. And we have the Scrapper Bike team that are based in the Oakland Public Library coming out to Bayview to do a bike build with local teens in Bayview. We also have programs for adults. Lots of author talks, lots of gardening programs, lots of exciting things for all ages. I want to thank, again, our key sponsors. Thank you, Mayor Breed. We're excited to see her out at some of our programs. Our friends of the San Francisco Public Library, we could not do this program without their support and advocacy or their funding. Chronicle Books, National Park Service, Golden Gate Conservancy, DCYF, and also San Francisco Unified School District. We have a very special program on Saturday, June 8th. We have the illustrator Zachariah O'Hara coming out with Scrapper Bikes to do a program in the Presidio. It's at 2 o'clock, and I would love to see you all there among many of the other 1,000 programs happening this summer. So thank you for your support, and I'll see you at one of these events.
Thank you so much, Christy. Very exciting. I know I am ready for summer now. Finally, I'd like to share some good news that the San Francisco Public Library is making the grade. On Monday, the Controller's Office released the 2019 City Survey, and there are copies of the report at the back of the room. And this survey is notable because the City and County of San Francisco surveys residents every 2 years. And the survey is to objectively assess their use of and satisfaction with city services. This survey has run 17 times since its inception. And I'm pleased to report that the library has improved since 2017 and earned the highest ratings among city services with an overall grade of A-. Shelley stole my thunder a little bit earlier. But this is the highest grade of any government service since the city survey began in 1996. And I'm particularly proud, thank you, yes. I am particularly proud of all of you, our library staff. 93% of residents rated library staff an A or a B, and the library received 4 of the top 5 highest ratings from the 2019 city survey. And that concludes the city librarian's report.
Thank you very much. Public comment?
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. Thank you for the reports and congratulations on the city survey. I have not had a chance to review it. You said it came out Monday, but congratulations. One thing I'm disappointed to not see in the city librarian's report is the initiative to stop collecting fines for overdue books. That's in the direction we've been talking about. We've been advocating that for years, and particularly in January, said that it was a very big mistake to only get rid of fines going forward and not the fines on the books. So what I am disappointed about is, though, that there was not sufficient publicity with respect to those fines on the books going away. For those people who are sitting at home, nervous or scared to come in with fines owing, or who are stuck, unable to borrow because their fines total over $10 or contribute to owing over $10, and therefore they are blocked from borrowing. Those people, if they didn't come and look at the library's website, it's not clear to me that there was any publicity whatsoever to let those folks know, hey, this is what the library is doing. Come back in, you're welcome. We want to take care of fines in this fashion. The library seems sometimes to do good things without publicity, and I think that's unfortunate because it assumes that everybody has, everybody goes to the library's website, and that's not necessarily true. I would suspect also, unfortunately, that the folks who are most affected by the impact of libraries' fines on their borrowing ability are, as your own survey showed, the poorest and the racial minorities. So not to reach out to them, for example, with mailers, for example, with publicity posted in library branches and at the main library, is only to exacerbate, again, the digital divide, the folks that have easier access to computers, for example, owning one at home, will more likely see the notices of what's going on with respect to the removal of fines from the record than those who don't have access. And that's not equal access. Thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Commissioner, additional public comment? Commissioner Ono?
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle and Chrissy, for your presentations, and Michael. I'm so glad we're #1 again. Last year was nationally, now we're San Francisco, and I'm sure I'm going to walk around with my little styrofoam finger from now on. I know we have the Warriors and Giants. Anyway, I really want to say thank you to the entire library team because we couldn't be #1 without all of you. So I appreciate and thank you all. And I will be leaving in about 5 minutes, so that's my last comment.
Thank you.
Additional public comment? Additional commissioner comments?
I'll say something. I just want to say, sort of echo what Teresa said. It's just so extraordinary, and I really love that the the assistants from library staff received an A-, and that really says so much about the heart and soul of the people who work here and their compassion and their dedication. And I just want to say, it's like I was not aware about Summer Stride program, and I've been learning a little bit about it, and I think it's really extraordinary that we do this. I think the PSA was really engaging. It makes me want to. I want to ride my bike. I want to be in the bike and being driven around with a dog or something. And but I really, it makes me feel proud that the city has such an investment. I particularly like the idea that kids can go out to a national park, and I just think the range of what you're offering is really extraordinary. And I'm just wondering, what kinds of numbers of participants do you get? And are you seeing an increase? Are you analyzing that? And how do you then develop the programs to sort of meet the current or anticipated goals?
Yeah, thank you for your feedback on the program. I'm excited to see you riding around on your bike this summer. Last year we saw a crazy amount of growth in our participation in our program. I'd have to look up the numbers. I did a report for the commission, I think in September, but I can get that information to you. We noticed a huge jump when we started partnering with the National Park Service. Their mailing list is over 100,000 just in this area. So that when they share what's going on at the library and saying, come to your library and get on a shuttle and have an experience, that really changed the way we thought about summer programs and opened our eyes to new opportunities through partnerships like this. So we've been building on that success and looking at the data really critically and finding where can we have the most impact and reach those who may not know that there is a local national park right here. In fact, we're surrounded by 14 in the bigger Bay Area. So that's been really illuminating for us when we're thinking about these programs, and we couldn't do this program without them.
Right. Thank you.
I would just add that this summer is going to be a first for us. We're going to be piloting a new outcome measure. So I'm not sure how it works exactly, but our chief analytics officer is here. Perhaps, Randy, you could comment on that.
Good evening, commissioners. There's a national outcome measurement tool called Project Outcome that is sponsored by the Public Library Association that we are working with to try to measure outcomes in a more meaningful, longitudinal way in some of our programming offerings. We have already started this effort with our digital literacy offerings starting in December of 2018 up to present and going forward. We're starting to see some outcome measures from that. And the next step on this hopefully multifaceted initiative will be with Summer Stride this summer. And so what we did is we've always done survey work with Summer Stride, both at the initial when they sign up and then at the end. And we're just trying to align that with the project outcome measures and the outcome surveys that they use so that we can start to track it within their framework and do this every summer going forward.
Great.
Thanks. I think it's really exciting to see the growth, because I remember when we first started talking about this, and just the visuals are so exciting. They really are.
I'd like to share, I didn't mention this, but we have the original art upstairs on an exhibition outside the main children's center, so I invite you to check that out.
Oh, great.
And the PSA was presented in-house and developed by Rich, who's probably in the booth right now, but it's all his animation and craft, and also with our new public information officer, Jamie Wong, who was previously with Chronicle Books.
Oh, wonderful.
So, yeah, some real talent behind the graphics.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I think we're at John. Just trying to move us along.
I'm so pleased to hear about the Randy starting with the project outcome. That is, to me, it's very, very important, particularly with American Library Association has already gotten that framework in place. The question that I have is, do we work with the school system as well? Because in that case, it also present the situation whereby there are the student who participate in summer strike versus the student who didn't care about summer strike, and if there were any differences that as to a sort of scientific measure of its impact and how much impact it is.
Yeah, we share that curiosity and would love to have a deeper data conversation with SFUSD. We do have, strategic outreach measures in place. So with the direct mail, we know that we are hitting the entire family of 26,000 students, getting the message that the library is a place for them to come and have free activities and access to materials. We've been doing that for a while. We're really open to figuring out if they want to do a pilot to go a little deeper in some of their targeted schools, and be happy to work with them on that. We're still waiting for a yes from them on that part.
Because I know that at a minimum, with the school system, they do observe very often after summer the student regressed. Mm-hmm. And whereas now, if the student continue during the summer, particularly with this kind of program, including your 40 STEM program, that I could see that. But then, although that is my speculation, but until Randy has got the hard data, then mine is just speculation.
We do have, with our Scholar Card program with SFUSD, we do have information that the students who have activated their cards, 64% of them are using the library. So we do have some data there. We would love to cross-reference that with summer data as well to see what's happening there. We do know that our library is uniquely positioned to provide these opportunities for kids who aren't in camp, and that we see at the library every day during the summer. We're giving them a leg up for them to return to school ready to learn and ready to start that next grade.
Wasn't there a lunch program that went with this?
We
too?
do. We have free lunch again at 3 of our locations: Bayview, Excelsior, and Main Library. So we've been doing that. We were the first public library in the state of California to do that, and I think this might be our 6th or 7th year doing it.
And it's every day? I can't remember.
I think so. I don't have the schedule top of mind.
I think it's Monday through Friday,
Is it Monday
to
through
mirror
Friday? I
what
think
they
it
would have
is.
gotten during the school.
Yeah. And often we're bringing in activities after that to kind of extend, so they're well fed, they're more open to learning, and their bodies are ready for some cool activity at the library. So there's some programmatic enhancements that have been put in place. Yeah, thanks for remembering that. There's a lot happening in summer.
Right. Well, I think it makes us all proud, actually.
Thank you.
Well, lastly, I just want to echo my fellow commissioners' comment about the A-. It's really the whole organization, the staff, the leadership, everyone. It's just marvelous with the partnership and what have you. So kudos to leadership, to the innovative program managers producing all this creative stuff, to Michelle, to everyone. Thank you.
And thank you all for all your leadership and support as well.
Okay. We are now at the approval of the minutes.
See you later.
Public comment?
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. I omitted to agree with the commissioners. I've often said the best search engine is a librarian, and that is one of the strengths of San Francisco Public Library. With respect to the minutes, I'm sorry to say that many of the references have an incomprehensibility about them because they refer to an item without saying what the item is about. And I think that's unfortunate. It makes it hard to know what was the comment, in fact, substantively about. On agenda item number 1, the last sentence with regard to public comment refers to my comment. He said the digital divide has made access and privacy much worse. This is just nonsense. I didn't say anything such thing. I'm certain that I would have talked about library actions, as I have talked previously today. that library actions on materials, perhaps, is what I was referring to. I can't figure it out, and the mess on the first floor made it impossible for me to listen to those comments directly tonight. Library actions have made equal access and patron privacy worse. That's what I would have been talking about if it was anything, and it wouldn't refer to some abstract digital divide. A digital divide exists to whatever degree, improved or not improved by your actions. With respect to the outstanding liability related to overdue fines, I believe that I've always said fees are also an issue, and that it includes children who can, in some cases, who do owe literally thousands of dollars. And that should be addressed. Approval of the minutes, again, there's a comment, there's a so-called summary about, he said on the bottom of page 3, it should say the Library Commission's lack of adherence to the Sunshine Ordinance, period. It's not even a sentence. He said on the bottom of page 3 should say the Library Commission's lack of adherence to the Sunshine Ordinance. Don't know what that's about. Perhaps I was talking about the library's record of violating Sunshine and being found in violation by the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force. I hope that you will not approve these minutes until those things are clarified and make sense. Thank you.
Where am I? Would anyone like to make are there additional comments? No. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? No. Okay, the minutes are approved as read. And the next minutes, April 18th. Public comment?
Well, as they say, where are the crowds? Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. There are some serious problems with these minutes with respect to the public comment summaries. General public comment, again, my comments, the last sentence. He said there are tremendous privacy breaches with the internet and social media. Well, what does that have to do with the library? Does that have to do with the touting of internet and social media? Does that have to do with how the library is using or the internet? It's not clear to me, and I don't know what that refers to. With respect to the announcement of the nomination of the mayor's appointee to be city librarian, which would be Michael Lambert, my comment was that the press release said that Mr. Lambert has championed increased and equitable access to libraries through expanded hours and a fine-free system. I said that that was putting quite a spin on things, and that in fact the library has shrunk those hours that patrons have told the library they most want more of, which is to say evenings and weekends, and that the fine-free system was the absolute minimum, and that it should be that his initial action was to basically do the absolute minimum on fines and fees and only advocate for going forward with a fine-free system and not have anything to do with getting rid of fines on the books or any fees whatsoever. There was a serious omission in the discussion on the city librarian's report. I had made a comment about the lack of warnings or contents with respect to the Tech Connect program concerning privacy issues. There was a comment by one of the presenters on privacy issues being, as she put it, baked into the programs. And she said, for example, with respect to, I believe she said Facebook privacy settings, that needs to be in the minutes. With respect to the minutes of February 7th, I said that I was concerned about the 2-minute time limit for public comment.
Thank
and
you.
that needs to be included.
Commissioner, any comment on the minutes of April 18th? Is there a motion to accept the minutes as
I move to accept the minutes as written.
written? Is there
A second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? No. Okay, adjournment. Public comment.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't think you should adjourn until you insist that your city librarian, in conjunction with your commission president, make it a practice to put onto the agenda what things, preferably at the end of the agenda, as you have done in prior years and as many bodies do, an item that says what you would like to have on future agendas. I think that you're cheating the public if you don't have that kind of input publicly. That gives you an opportunity to take up some concern or issue that you have found during the meeting or that has come to you since the last meeting, or anything that has come to you that you think is worthwhile for the library to consider on a future agenda. And that ought to be something that you have routinely on your agenda as a way of representing the citizens and the folks in San Francisco. I think you're cheating the public if you do not have that item on the agenda, as I said, as other bodies do, and as the Library Commission has had in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion for adjournment?
I make a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.